Hello and welcome to this short presentation on EngineRoom software. My name's Chris Dunham. I'm the Managing Director of Carbon Descent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick presentation giving you some background about the software, and then I'm going to move on to showing you the software itself. So, a bit of background about us. At Carbon Descent, we've been going for 14 years. We're a company that produces software and sells consultancy. Hopefully, as the name suggests, you can realize that we're about reducing carbon emissions, and EngineRoom is one of 4 software products that we sell. A bit of background about EngineRoom. It was developed by us through a knowledge transfer partnership with London South Bank University. We used it extensively in-house over a number of years before deciding to sell it on the commercial market. Its advantages are that it's robust and flexible to use, but very quick to get to an answer on whether a scheme is suitable, whether it's feasible to put in CHP, and what would be the optimal size of CHP for that scheme. What does it cost? The initial price is £2,500 for up to 3 users. Then there's an ongoing £1,000 annual license fee covering support and any updates and upgrades. Right, I'm now going to switch over to the software itself. As you can see, there are 5 steps that you need to go through before you can press calculate and get an answer. So the first step is to generate some load profiles. Now, the approach that we've taken to this is that we're trying to get to hourly profiles, hourly daily profiles for a typical day in each month of the year. So there are various ways that you can do this within the software. The most technical option is this one, which is to select from a number of different building types, put in the floor area information, and then put in technical parameters about the building such as infiltration rates, dimensions, U values, and so on, effectively modeling the building to generate some profiles here which can then be used within the modeling. The second option is to use benchmarks. So it's a simpler approach. Again, we're selecting from different building types. We then put in a floor area. It then uses energy use benchmarks associated with that building type and generic profiles for that building type, which you can then tweak based on occupancy and so on here to your specific situation. So that's the second option. And then a third option is to put in energy use information, which you can put it in on an annual basis or a monthly basis, and it will generate profiles from that. Or lastly, if you actually have hourly profiles, which you might have generated in another software package, or you might actually have monitored consumption data that you can use, then you can simply copy and paste them in here. So that's load profiles. On to the second step, which is setting the energy tariffs. Now, there are 2 distinct approaches that you can use within EngineRoom. One is that simplest option is that the owner of the site is also the owner and operator of the CHP, in which case they're simply offsetting costs that they would have had to pay in terms of imported electricity and gas and so on. And the second option is to model the scheme as an ESCO, where an ESCO is selling heat and electricity to the site, in which case you then obviously have to enter heat prices and electricity prices, and you can also set distribution and admin costs here. But either way, you need to set energy prices for imported gas and electricity and exported electricity, and you can do that in this area here. And you can see that you can model different types of tariff here, so electricity tariffs. So here we've got a seasonal time of day tariff, or it might be a simpler day-night tariff, or simply a flat rate tariff. So various options there. So that's setting tariffs. The third step you need to go through is to select some engines to actually run the modeling against. And here, just to save time, you can see from the list I've already selected a few engines that we're going to model. And but you can actually edit this database of engines. So if you click on Edit Database, it'll take you through to a sheet where got parameters about these different types of engines that you could go in and change. What are they? Or you can add your own engines. There's space here for you to add in your own engines if they're not in the list. And what we're basically after is details about the manufacturer and so on. But in terms of the technical parameters, these are information about the outputs in terms of electricity, heat, and the inputs in terms of fuel in at different efficiencies. So here at 100%, 100% output, here at 75% output, and here at 50% output. So effectively, we're after the heat to power ratio and efficiency at each of these different outputs. And then we need to know the minimum turn down, which you can set here, which might be, say, 50%, typical availability, and generally for as you go up through sort of larger engines, they become, the availability is better. And then obviously the cost, maintenance cost and installation cost. So here you can see we've already got quite a few engines already in the list, but you can go in and edit this, put in your own engines and so on, and then they will then appear in the in this list here. So this is you can modify this and put in your own engine details should you wish to. So but here I've already selected some. So moving over to control options, you've got, generally you're looking at a choice between heat and power LEDs typically, but there are some other options you can model there as well. But generally we're choosing between heat and power LED. Here I've selected heat LED, and here you can set the CHP runtime. So you can either specify times, or you can select continuously and let EngineRoom decide whether it should run the engine based on the parameters that you've entered. Fourth stage is to enter financial information. So you'll see shortly that the kind of outputs you get are net present value, internal rate of return for the different engines we're modeling here. And so it needs to know the project life, discount rate, inflation. Also over here you can set CCL, ROCs if that was applicable, other subsidies and so on. Here tax rates, depreciation. Here you can model a loan of some sort, some type of financing. And here, if you click on this button, you can go through and put in more detailed capital cost information. And you can do that in two ways. You can either choose to set the costs as a percentage of the CHP engine costs that you've just seen when we looked at the list of engines, or you can put it in as a fixed cost. And here, just by way of example, you can see that I put in £500,000 for a network cost. But depending on what stage of the modeling of the feasibility you're at, you might have very detailed information that you can put in here about the different cost elements. So that's financial information. And lastly is just to set the emission factors. So up here for CO2 emissions, you can choose those or amend them. And here, should you wish to, you can model NOx, SOx, carbon monoxide and particulates. You could set those if you wanted to. So that's it. It's now time to press calculate, get some answers. And here you can see for the different engines that we chose, this is a graph just of comparing the net present value. You also look at internal rate of return, and lastly CO2 savings. And as is often the case, I find the kind of best financially performing engine doesn't match the best engine in terms of CO2 savings, and this is the case here. So it might be, in this case, we're looking at perhaps the best option is 185 kilowatts electric engine. You can see more sort of detail on those figures up here. So we might wish to then go back and say, well, let's have a look at that engine in a bit more detail. So if we choose Analyze one engine in detail, scroll down to our 185 kilowatt engine, select that, run it again, and now we can look at what's going on in each month of the year. So we can see for our profiles of demand, so here you can see our power outputs of the engine versus the actual demand. So obviously in this profile that we've created, very low power demand and quite a large thermal demand. So you can see in each month what's going on in terms of the actual operation of the engine versus the demands for each month. And here you can see more detail about the performance, so the financial results and the unit performance in terms of run hours and efficiency, and here the QI, and then down into emissions. Here you can see our net present value graph over our 25 years. And if you want to see more detail behind all of that in terms of the net present value calculation, here you can see a discounted cash flow with all of those elements over our 20-year period that we chose. So that, in a nutshell, is EngineRoom. Thank you very much indeed for listening.